Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X research and professional physicist. And today I'd like to bring to you another one of my articles. This one is entitled "The Sun is No Longer Shining: Satellite Images." Now, in Article 351 entitled "The Sun is No Longer Shining," I talked about the evidence which shows that the sun is most likely not shining anymore. I also talked about the evidence that the sun has been replaced by a sun simulation system. And you may look at Article 226b about sun simulating devices, Article 233 about the holographic sun in the clouds, and Article 3118, which actually shows a sky holographic projection and the fact that there's a planetary simulator up there. Now think about it. Why would a sky simulation system which simulates the sun, moon, and planets be necessary if the sun was still working? Yes, it could be that it is simply very dim, but the truth is that during the SDO eclipse season, the sun goes from full spectrum light emission, at least in all the wavelengths detected by the SDO satellite, to complete darkness within a few minutes, with different regions on the sun going from being on to being off within the blink of an eye. The fact that the sun goes dark during this time, which is called the SDO eclipse season, is clearly detailed in Article 324 entitled "Planet X Causes the Sun to be Darkened." And these are images from that article. And these are SDO images. SDO stands for Solar Dynamics Observatory. SDO satellite images from the last SDO eclipse season of 2017. And the SDO eclipse season is supposed to be due to the Earth eclipsing SDO's view of the sun. But it is actually impossible that these images are caused by an eclipse. And the way we see that, and first we look here, this illustrates the Earth's curvature compared with the sun. As you can see, it's almost a straight line there. So we can approximate the Earth with this triangle there. And when we compare this image with that image, they're only 4 minutes apart, and the darkness is progressing from here upwards. So this is the later image, 4 minutes later. Now, when we compare these two images, we see that if this was the Earth covering the sun, then this part below would be covered. There's no reason for any part above it to be covered. There's nothing to cover it. But then what happened to the corona? Why is it missing there? It's perfectly edged. That's has not been covered by anything. You can see the darker purple edge there. What this shows is the corona shrinks back. The Earth is not covering it, so this cannot be an eclipse. And then the other reason is that this curvature of this edge of the darkness is too large to have been created by the Earth, because the Earth is not curved enough to cause that kind of curvature there. And then we have pieces of the sun that remain on beyond the edge of the darkness. And then we have the coronal hole that seems to grow within 4 minutes. It actually shows the sun is losing ability to emit light. It cannot be anything else. So this shows that the sun is going dark. It's not an eclipse. Now, the reason why we are allowed to see the sun actually go dark during this time is because there is a cover story for it. How many times does the sun go dark and we are not shown it going dark? In addition, I have caught the sun going partially and completely dark at many other times outside of the SDO eclipse season. And this is one of those times, and what they do is they use these cutoff, I call them cutoff lines. They just cover part of the image showing the sun, because obviously they don't want us to see what's over there and what's going on with the sun. But some of it they allow us to see, like this, which seems to be the edge of a coronal hole. Why is there a coronal hole there? There was no coronal there 4 minutes before. What happened? The same thing on that side. This jagged edge shows that there's what seems to be the edge of a coronal hole. But what it has to be is that part of the sun has gone dark. And the fact that they're covering this actually indicates that this whole part of the sun has gone dark. That's why they're covering it. And that's why this moves downwards, because the darkness is progressing across the face of the sun in a downward direction. There you are again. That looks like the edge of a coronal hole. But there's no coronal hole there. There was no coronal hole there just a few minutes before. Same thing on that side. And then the sun goes completely dark. There's no sun there at all, so we can only assume they lowered this until there was nothing left. And they don't show us a lot of these images. They just do not, they show us the same image, or it seems to be the same image where the cutoff line is in the same place for a while. And then they show the one after that where there's nothing left. Now, so what we see here was the sun going dark, and this was not during the SDO eclipse season. So the sun goes dark at other times outside of the SDO eclipse season. But if we can still see the sun in these satellite images, does that not show that the sun must be on at least most of the time? Not really, as there is evidence suggesting that the images we are being shown are being manipulated and therefore far from showing us the sun's true state. So in these SDO images from April 18th, 2018, we saw the sun going completely dark between 1734 and 1740. That's the last image there. 1734 to 1740. But if we compare that with this image which is shown here from the same day, 1736, which is from that time interval, so it's in between that time, nothing seems to have happened to the sun. So one of these images cannot be the truth. And obviously, because they're already trying to not show us exactly what's happening, whilst giving us a hint, we would assume that the SDO images are showing us the truth and the stereo ones are not. So, and then in these images, this is from the SDO eclipse season from August 16, 2017, and this is when the sun reached minimum light emission. After that, the light emission increases. This is from the first day, and the sun never goes completely dark on the first day. But it is darker here than there. And the image before will show just a little bit more light emission. And yet this LASCO C2 image from 7/12 from that day, 2017 08/16, doesn't seem like nothing was happening to the sun. Clearly we know that something was happening. I mean, we know something was happening because they even have a cover story for this. So this cannot be the truth. They're manipulating images, possibly showing us old images. They could just change the timestamp. That's really not a problem for them, I'm sure, with all the things that they do to hide so much truth. Thus, we are only shown the truth about what is going on when there is a cover story, the SDO eclipse season, for instance, or when there was a lunar eclipse that day. It then takes effort to dismantle the cover story, something which I'm quite happy to do in order to uncover the truth. But the rest of the time, we are not being shown the sun's true state. We have even been shown enough images which suggest that the sun has weakened substantially and the sun had become much darker between 2011 2018. So we know that the sun went through a period when it weakened dramatically, yes. But do we know for certain that this occurred between 2011 2018? No, we don't, because NASA is not beyond showing us old images to give us the impression that the sun is still shining when it is not. They will even give us some of the truth. The sun is weakening perhaps and turning off now and then, so that we are deceived into believing that that is the whole truth. But could they be showing us images of the sun from 5, 10, or 20 years ago? Are they beyond changing the timestamps on the images? No, they are not. So here are the images between, well, with timestamps from 2011, 2018, showing that the sun grew much, much darker during those times. This is in 304 angstroms, which shows the top of the chromosphere, and indicates that the sun lost a lot of chromosphere during that time. But was it really from that time? Well, the images are real. They show us the real sun. But are they from the time which the timestamps show us they are? We cannot be sure of that, and it's likely not. They're not. This is from article 195 entitled Stellar Cores and the Dying Sun. Now, as I have detailed in recent articles, Planet X system objects seem to come to the Sun as comets, and you may look at article 367 for more details on that. This means that since comets have been observed from Earth for at least 5,000 years, that this destroyer system has been preying on the Sun for at least 5,000 years. These objects have been removing the Sun's coronal and chromospheric plasma and drawing the Sun's energy for 5,000 years. And you may look at article 365, titled Planet X, the cause behind CMEs, for more details. Would it be surprising that the Sun has now reached or possibly passed the stage when it barely can keep its light emission going? The fact that the Sun goes dark during the SDO eclipse season, which, because it repeats itself at a regular period, must mean that an object in orbit around the Sun comes by it at these times, remains with it for about 24 days, the length of the eclipse season, going into a shorter orbit at that time, and then returns to its larger orbit, only to return some 181 to 184 days later. This suggests that it's now easy to get the Sun to switch off. It has become easy for the stellar core to affect the Sun so that the Sun's atmosphere or corona comes out of plasma arc mode and the light emission stops. This in turn suggests that the Sun is barely generating enough electric field in its outer layers to keep its atmosphere or corona in plasma arc mode, so that any increased load makes its light emission stop. Couple that with the realization that whatever satellite images we are getting are being manipulated and may be much older than the timestamp suggests. And we have the very real possibility that the Sun is not, what we have is the real possibility that the Sun is not turning on at all now. It may turn on now and then, but the increasingly weakening effect the Planet X objects will be having on it, which could be seen from whatever past SDO images we have been allowed to see, which may have been much older than the timestamps would have us believe, would suggest that it is very likely that the Sun is now off and thus not shining at least most of the time. In conclusion, SDO images with timestamps from as far back as 2010 have been clearly showing that the Sun can and does go dark at all wavelengths detected by the satellite, thus indicating it is barely maintaining its atmosphere in plasma arc mode and is thus very weak. Or it was then. In addition, SDO, it must be weaker now. In addition, SDO images from over the years also indicate an increasingly weaker Sun in terms of intensity of light emission, which also suggests that the stellar cores have, over the past 5,000 years, severely weakened the Sun to the point of exhaustion. Furthermore, satellite images of the Sun are clearly being manipulated so that they only give us a glimpse of the truth, when there is a cover story for what they show. This suggests that the images we are being shown may be older than the timestamps which appear on them, and that the Sun is no longer shining for at least most of the time, if not all of the time anymore. And these are the references. This is Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X physicist. Thank you for watching.